He deleted the app at 2 in the morning, not out of frustration, not because it wasn't working, but because it was working too well, and none of it felt real. Hundreds of matches, dozens of conversations, and not one single person who made him feel the way he felt standing next to a woman he had known for exactly 45 minutes at a bookstore in downtown Chicago. That moment haunted him. Because in 45 minutes of genuine, unscripted human contact, something happened that 3 years of swiping never once produced. And the question that kept him up that night is the same question that is quietly eating at millions of people right now. Are we doing this completely wrong? There is a strange kind of loneliness that lives specifically inside the era of infinite choice. You would think more options means more connection. You would think smarter algorithms mean better matches. You would think that by now, in a world where you can order a custom meal, stream any movie ever made, and video call someone on the other side of the planet in seconds, finding a meaningful relationship would be easier than it has ever been. And yet the data tells a completely different story. Loneliness rates have climbed steadily for over a decade. First date conversion rates on major dating apps sit somewhere around 2 to 3% of all matches. 2 to 3%. That means for every 100 people you match with, roughly 97 of them never become anything more than a name on a screen. And the wild part is, most people already feel this, deep down. They just keep swiping because stopping feels like giving up. If this is already hitting close to home, stay with me, because what comes next gets stranger and more honest than most people are willing to say out loud. And if you want more stories like this one, stories that go past the surface and into the real psychology of how people connect, chase, and lose each other, hit subscribe right now. This channel exists for exactly these moments, and there is more coming. So let's talk about what actually happens inside your brain when you swipe, because this is not just a social trend, this is neuroscience. Every time you open a dating app and start going through profiles, your brain releases a small pulse of dopamine, the same chemical behind gambling, social media scrolling, and slot machines. Not because you found someone incredible, just because you are searching. The act of looking, the anticipation, the possibility, that is what triggers the reward. And the platforms are designed around this. The interface is engineered to keep you in that loop as long as possible, because your engagement is the product. You are not the customer. You are the inventory. And once you understand that, the whole experience starts to look very different. This matters because it explains something that a lot of people feel but cannot quite name. You can spend an hour on a dating app and feel simultaneously exhausted and empty, even though nothing bad happened. No rejection, no argument, no confrontation, just scrolling. And yet you close the app feeling slightly worse than when you opened it. That is not weakness. That is the predictable neurological outcome of a system that was never designed to make you feel fulfilled. It was designed to make you come back tomorrow. Now picture this. Two people, same city, same age range, similar interests. One of them has been on 3 different dating apps for 2 years. They have gone on maybe 30 dates. They are still single and increasingly cynical about the whole thing. The other person decided 8 months ago to stop relying on apps entirely and rebuilt their social life from the ground up. Joined a recreational volleyball league, started showing up to a monthly book club, said yes to every social invitation for 90 days straight. In those 8 months, they went on 11 dates, all of them with people they met organically through overlapping social worlds. 6 of those 11 turned into second dates. 2 became genuine relationships. The difference between these 2 people is not luck. It is not looks. It is not even personality. It is strategy. And here is where it gets psychologically deep. One of the most consistent findings in relationship research is something called the mere exposure effect. The more familiar you are with someone, the more attractive you tend to find them. Not because they changed, but because repeated exposure builds comfort, and comfort is the silent foundation that attraction actually grows on. Apps work almost entirely against this principle. You are evaluating a stranger on a 2-inch photo before a single word is exchanged. You are making a snap judgment about chemistry before chemistry has had any chance to breathe. And then you wonder why every first date feels stiff and performative, and nothing like the kind of connection that seems to happen naturally between people who already know each other a little. The people who are genuinely winning at this, and I use that word carefully because love is not supposed to feel like a competition, but somehow it does, are the ones who have figured out how to manufacture the conditions that organic connection actually needs. They are not leaving it to fate. They are not sitting at home hoping someone incredible materializes. But they are also not feeding themselves into a machine that was designed to keep them perpetually almost satisfied. They are doing something smarter. They are building environments where interesting people naturally collide with other interesting people over time, repeatedly, with low pressure and genuine shared purpose. Think about the last time you met someone and genuinely clicked. Really think about it. Was it on an app? Maybe. But more likely, it was somewhere you both had a reason to be, something you both cared about, a moment where you were already being the most natural version of yourself. A class, a work event, a friend's dinner party, a shared cab home after a concert that ran too late. Nobody plans those moments. But the people who create the richest relationship lives are the ones who put themselves in more situations where those moments have a fighting chance of happening. This is exactly the kind of psychology that the team at Shadowlight Stories finds endlessly fascinating. The space between what we think we want and what we actually need. The gap between the story we tell ourselves about how connection works and the reality of how it actually happens when it's real. Here is the twist that most people never see coming. A study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that couples who met through mutual friends reported higher long-term relationship satisfaction than couples who met through any other method, including dating apps, but also including meeting in bars, at work, or even at social events. Not marginally higher, significantly higher. And the researchers' explanation for this is worth sitting with. When two people are introduced through a shared social network, there is already a layer of implicit trust and social accountability that simply does not exist between strangers on the internet. You both know someone. That someone has some kind of stake in how you treat each other, and that invisible social fabric, that web of mutual connection, actually changes how people behave from the very first interaction. People are more honest, more themselves, more present. Because there are real-world consequences to being otherwise. What this tells us is not that apps are evil or that anyone who uses them is foolish. It tells us something much more interesting, that the medium through which two people find each other shapes the relationship before the relationship even begins. The origin story matters, not as a fairy tale, not as something to tell at the wedding, but as a psychological and social foundation that either supports connection or quietly undermines it from the start. And there is one more layer to this that almost nobody talks about, the paradox of choice. Barry Schwartz, the psychologist who literally wrote the book on this, found that more options do not make people happier or better at choosing. They make people more anxious, less decisive, and more likely to experience regret about whatever they did choose. Because somewhere in the back of your mind, there is always the nagging whisper that maybe there was someone better, 2 swipes further down. That whisper does not stop on the date. It does not stop in the relationship, and it is doing quiet damage to how seriously people are investing in the connections they actually have. So, what is the real answer here? Not a list, not a formula, but an honest shift in where you put your energy. Instead of optimizing your profile, optimize your calendar. Instead of crafting the perfect opening line for a stranger, deepen the relationships that already surround you. Because those relationships are the ecosystem from which everything else actually grows. Instead of spending 45 minutes swiping, spend 45 minutes in a room with real people doing something you genuinely care about. The math changes when the environment changes. The experience changes when you stop being a product and start being a person again. That man who deleted the app at 2 in the morning eventually went back to the bookstore. Not because he had a plan, because something in him already knew where the real version of this story had to begin. 3 months later, he was dating the woman who worked there. Not a perfect story, not a movie ending, but something undeniably, unmistakably real, which is the only thing any of this was ever actually supposed to be about. Here is what I want to leave with you today. The reason swiping exhausts you is not because you are doing it wrong. It is because you are a human being trying to find meaning inside a machine that was built to monetize your loneliness. And some part of you knows the difference. Trust that part. Now I want to hear from you. What has actually worked for you? Not what you tried, but what genuinely led to something real. Drop your honest answer in the comments because I think a lot of people scrolling past this video right now need to read it. And if this story hit something true for you, share it with someone who is still stuck in that 2 a.m. loop staring at their phone, because that one share might be the thing that actually changes their week. The most revolutionary thing you can do in the age of algorithms is choose to be somewhere real, with someone real, and mean it.